Hi there, it's such a pleasure to welcome you to the Members Club. My name is Charlie Bradley Ross, founder of Offset Warehouse, and I am very excited to be chatting to Kresse Westling, who is the owner and co-founder of Elvis and Kresse. Since
Morning.
2000, oh, morning, hi. So since 2005, oh, and the dog.
Yeah.
Since 2005, Elvis and Kresse have been turning waste materials into luxury lifestyle accessories and donating 50% of profits back to charities. So hi, Kresse, and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
So I was hoping we could just start off maybe by telling us a little bit about how it all started. I mean, anybody who knows Elvis and Kresse will know the story, but maybe you could tell us that kind of eureka moment with fire hoses and also how much you've reclaimed since you started.
Sure. I think for us, you have to kind of cast your memory back to 2005, and there was obviously a lot of things that were different then. One of the things that was the most profoundly different was that at around that time, the UK was landfilling about 100 million tons of waste every year, which is an obscenely large amount. Over the decades that has passed, that amount has gone down significantly. So we're now sort of closer to 60 million tons a year, which is still unbelievably large, but it is 40 million tons less. So one of the things that really inspired us to start looking at the waste situation in the UK was just that sheer volume and the fact that recycling rates were so poor and that we were so reliant on incineration as well. And when we started exploring and looking into what went to landfill and what kind of materials these were, we had a chance meeting with the London Fire Brigade and discovered that their damaged, decommissioned hoses were going to landfill, and just really fell in love with the material and thought it deserved a better second life and that it didn't deserve to just languish and die underground.
Amazing. And so how did you go and how do you go about now setting up that kind of partnership so that all the materials are coming to you? Because presumably there are sort of hundreds, if not thousands of fire stations. So what is the kind of logistics of it?
Well, the really good thing is that the repair of fire hoses is actually quite specialized. So there are a few hose and line shops in the UK where fire hoses go to be repaired or decommissioned. So you can imagine a fire hose is about 22 meters long. And if it gets tiny little tears here and there, those can be fixed, those can be repaired. But if it gets a catastrophic tear halfway down the hose, it will no longer function as a fire hose because you can't have short hoses. And that means that it gets decommissioned, and it gets decommissioned at these very few central locations, and that's where we collect.
Okay, amazing. So it's actually quite straightforward, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing. And so interestingly, like you just said, the material itself is really amazing. And in fact, other brands use exactly the same material, but they don't derive it from fire hoses. They kind of just buy it new, which seems like a completely wasted opportunity. But at the same time, we've heard quite a lot about fickle consumers, not really, I don't know what the word is, not really appreciating secondhand and actually thinking, oh no, if I'm buying something, I want it to be fresh and new. So how do you get around that?
I think this is something that goes in waves, because obviously in some aspects of life, people really, really love antiques. And there's a particular obsession at the moment with, post-war sort of 1950s, 1960s Scandinavian furniture. So that kind of thing seems to be more socially acceptable. And of course, if you say vintage rather than secondhand,
right,
that completely changes.
Yeah.
that completely changes the debate. And I definitely think it comes down to how these items are discussed and marketed and appreciated. If we talk about the quality of the raw materials, if we talk about the ability for it to have a long second life, if we cherish the original design, if we cherish a particular aspect of a material, that will allow it to really sing into its next existence with someone else. Whereas if we've started off with really poor quality materials to begin with, they might not have the best opportunity to live again and to become vintage. So the kinds of things that can become vintage generally were very well made to begin with. And I think that's what we have to think about as a society, is whether or not we should allow poor quality things to be made at all, because they may just be a complete waste of resources, particularly when you think of fashion, which is now, officially the second most polluting industry in the world. And a lot of that has to do with the hyper production and hyper consumption of goods that are not made with incredible quality or integrity, and have all kinds of issues in their supply chain, and are not ethically made, and are not made with organic or fairly traded materials. And maybe we should question whether those items should be made at all.
Yeah, amazing. And actually, you hit on some really, really interesting points. Do you think, as a brand, do you have a kind of do's and don'ts of when you're talking about your products? Things like, we say vintage, we don't say secondhand. Are there anything like that that kind of helps you to position your product as a luxury item?
I think that what we've always focused on is celebrating the truth of what we do. And the fire hose is an incredible material that has led an unbelievable life that deserves to be celebrated and admired. And that's the vocabulary used. It's not marketing speak. It's just the truth. And I think we've also avoided a lot of the terminology that traditionally comes with fashion or luxury, because we're not coming at this from either of those angles. We put the materials first, and the fire hose was our first material. It's always what the properties of fire hose, the history of fire hose, the nature of it, and what its capabilities are. Those are the things that we're always talking about, rather than a particular type of language for a particular campaign.
Amazing. Okay, amazing. So, and really awesome is that your repurposing doesn't stop there. You now incorporate reclaiming into almost all kind of aspects of the business, which I love. So from parachute silks to strands of hessian, from coffee bags to cardboard from shoe boxes. So could you tell us a little bit about that, and maybe some examples of the sorts of things that you're using all these materials for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was really important to us that if we're going to start with rescue as the main principle behind the business, then it doesn't make any sense to just rescue one material and buy everything else new. Although we started with the fire hose, we then immediately knew, well, we can't line these bags in a brand new material, so we're going to have to find another waste textile that we can use for that. And we didn't want to use virgin packaging, so we had to go and create more partnerships to find materials that we could deconstruct to make our own packaging in-house. And this is kind of an obsession for us. It's down to not just our products, but our workshop, our home, everything that we do or create is made with reclaimed materials. And it's because once you start looking around, you realize that there already is enough material in existence. It's just not being deployed properly. It's just not being loved enough. And I think what we're always trying to do with not just our product, but also our packaging and our business cards and our home, is we're trying to show that you can do absolutely unbelievably incredible things that are wonderful and decadent and luxurious, but also with the same value system as we have with the fire hose.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. And it's so inspirational. And I saw your house is featured in this really beautiful spread, and everything about it is so thoughtful and mindful. It's really, really inspirational. And actually, you mentioned partnerships, which is a kind of key word, I think, because from the get-go, you've developed some really interesting partnerships. Like your 2010 collection was launched in Sotheby's, which is amazing. And you've had some really fantastic celebrity endorsements. Cameron Diaz, I saw you with will.i.am and, on Instagram. And so I guess for brands out there, what is your advice for finding these partners and working on PR on your own?
So I think partners is something that we always had to begin with, because we're collecting redundant raw materials from stakeholders, from the firefighters, from the London Fire Brigade, and we work with the firefighters charity. So even from day one, we had these two partnerships in place. And that just extends every time we find a new material. So we've always been about making connections in our community and trying to find new partnerships. So that comes very, very natural to us. It's always been a part of what we do, just by the very nature of our commitment to rescue and donation. And as for the PR side of it, the reality is that if you are doing something spectacularly unique and amazing and incredible, which I still sometimes am astounded that we have been able to do what we set out to do, but that's where the press comes from. It comes from people actually wanting to learn about something that really is truly good and has been designed with care and with the planet in mind and its people in mind. And we're not sort of casually going about making the world better in a small way. This is the reason for our existence. We are a problem-solving company, and that means that that not just the press, but people are interested in what we do.
Okay, amazing. And most recently, you've launched a collaboration with Alicia Reiner, who I think most people will recognize from Orange is the New Black.
Yes.
And together you've developed this really beautiful clutch made from excess Burberry leather. Can you tell us a bit about that and how that all came about?
So Alicia is part of a project called Livari, which is a zero waste clothing label based in the US. They did a collection last year. And this year, what they decided to do instead of a collection was to work with other independent brands that matched their values. And it's got three absolutely sort of fearless female founders: a stylist, an activist, and Alicia, who is obviously in the media. And what we did with them is that we have a clutch bag that we've designed, but it's designed with rescued leather. And because it's a system that we've devised, a Lego-like system that you can individually cut and hand weave the leather together to make the panels for the piece, it gives you a lot of opportunity for co-creation. And when we started talking with Livari, what we decided to do was to basically give them the template of our clutch and allow them to come up with their own interpretation of the weave. And Alicia really liked the idea of having black on black. So there's a textured black on a flat black. And there's a lovely message etched into one of the pieces: joy is an act of resistance, which she has at the end of her emails, and I quite like. And then obviously it's got a hot orange lining, I think, which is quite fun.
Oh, amazing. Oh my goodness, that's incredible. So, and in 2015, you embarked on, I think it's 2015, on a 5-year partnership with the Burberry Foundation.
Actually, that was late last year. So
Okay.
although we started talking to Burberry probably in 2015, and the discussions went on 4 years because
Wow.
we were trying to work out how we could somehow work together to solve the leather waste problem. It's something that meant a lot to us, and that we were already deeply engaged in, and that we felt that we had a solution for. And it's something that Burberry was very, very concerned with. So we spent 2 years having these discussions, and then we launched a partnership late last year, which has really been interesting because every day we're learning more about each other and how we work and the problem we're trying to solve. And it's certainly good that it's a 5-year project, because we're going to need all of that time in order to truly embed the solutions that we have.
Amazing. And so what's the outcome at the end?
Well, I think this is the really interesting thing, and what really appeals to us about it is that there won't be a single outcome. There will be many, many outcomes. And one of the key values at Elvis Kresse is that we don't really have time to do one good thing. We always have to have multiple positive objectives. You can't just have, with the firehouse, you can't just use one reclaimed material. You have to use reclaimed materials in general. You can't just decide that you're going to make an environmental product and then make it in an unethical way. You have to then look at your supply chain and every aspect of what you do, and ensure that it is the best that it possibly can be, and continually improving, which is why we're a certified social enterprise and a founding UK B Corp, and part of a wider mission to ensure that that businesses are good for the environment and good for its people instead of being extractive and exploitative.
Yeah, amazing. And what was your perspective when the news broke out about how they are dealing with their waste? Because presumably, I mean, you've been talking to them for years, but this kind of only came out recently. And we were talking to Hal from Unmade a couple of days ago, and he was sort of saying, well, this is, one company. It's like the tip of the iceberg. All of this rest of this stuff is happening as well. So what was your perspective?
Burberry has always had a plan in place in order to change that practice. The most interesting thing perhaps about Burberry is that they are transparent about it. This is something that came out in their own shareholders meeting, and within a couple of months they made a following announcement, which was that the practice is going to stop. And I think that it's fascinating to see whether that gets copied by the wider industry. Obviously, there has been this practice for a very long time across the industry, and not just at the luxury level, across fast fashion as well. And it will be really interesting to see if, now that Burberry's made the announcement that they are no longer going to do this, which is wonderful news, if that's going to be copied. That would be really remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. And excitingly, you mentioned it in before, but you were one of the first B Corps in the UK, so a benefit corporation, which is something many members ask us about. And is that something that you would recommend?
I would, because it's not just a way to look at your business that's completely different. And it's not just an incredible community of like-minded businesses that want to trade with each other. It's really about making a statement that what you actually do is going to be more important than what you say. So it's certainly a way to prove that you are going to, you're going to put your money where your mouth is, or whatever the phrase may be. And I think it's quite important to make those kinds of to take those kinds of steps in a world where the dialogue of companies like ourselves is increasingly adopted by people who don't put the practices in place. So the idea of being a B Corp for us came quite naturally to us, because you could argue that we were a B Corp before there were B Corps. We were already working this way. These were already our values. But what's really beautiful about it is that as you go through the certification process, you realize that there are areas where we can improve. And you also realize that it's going to take us a long time to become the ultimate company, the utopian company, because there will always be things that we're not quite doing to the best of our ability. And one of those things is that we don't have a board. So in a lot of B Corps, they have a board and they have an advisory group that specifically looks at the impact that a business is having. And because we're small, and Elvis and I, who sort of hold those values very close to ourselves, are still alive and in action, we're able to manage that. But the reason why in a B Corp you need those governance structures in place are in case the founders are no longer with the business. We will age, right? So we have to be prepared for that. And that's one of the things I really like about it, is that it's a very robust set of auditing tools. And even if you're not intending on going through the process, it's a free online tool. You can go on right now and assess your business, and you can see where your gaps are. And I can guarantee you that filling those gaps and making those improvements will actually make you a better business. We know that B Corps in general are outperforming the market. So
amazing.
So it's not just that you're doing this to have warm and fuzzy feelings. You're doing this to actually get something done and actually be a more robust future-proofed business.
Yeah, incredible. I think it's so amazing to talk to you, and just because you can feel how passionate you are about your ethos. It's like the pillar of everything that you do. I think it's really, really amazing. And another thing that I love about you is that you have a kind of business acumen. So you have a really solid understanding of how a business works, and that you need to have money coming in. You need to understand cash flow. So what are your kind of absolute essential things that a creative person who maybe doesn't have a business or finance background, what do you think they absolutely have to know?
This is a really fantastic question, because as you can imagine, in the 14 years that we've been running, we've seen some unbelievably amazing, well-intentioned social enterprises come and go. And a lot of them were unbelievably social and not focused on the enterprise side. And you have to keep in mind that even though money may mean absolutely nothing to you, and it doesn't to us, it's just not why we're doing this. You have to remember that it is WD-40. It is the grease in the wheels. It is what keeps the doors open and gives you the permission to do the most incredible good that you can possibly imagine. So so every time you sort of put the business on the back burner and you don't focus on it and you don't cherish that side of it, you're actually putting your mission at risk. And that's something that people have to keep close in mind. And I recognize that there are very, very few entrepreneurs that have the creative side, the technical side, and the business side all in one head, all in one brain. I certainly do not have that. And that's one of the reasons why Elvis and I make a very good partnership, and actually why we can see the business becoming stronger now that we are able to build an amazing team to work with us in Kent. You know, in the beginning, when there was only two of us, it was certainly less robust than it is now that there are that there are, you know, 17. I mean, it's really interesting to see how you can improve when you have more brains thinking on the same problems. So I would urge people, if they don't have the skills to pay VAT and manage cash flow, that they should find someone to work with that can help with that and that loves that and that will own that.
Incredible. So finally, to wrap it up, across, I think we said 14 years, what would you say were or are the top 3 challenges of running a business and how you've overcome them, running your business and how you've overcome them?
So the first challenge is that there will be a lot of really boring things that you have to do to run a business, and those are they're relentless, and you just have to get them done. So, and I would count those as a big challenge, because it's really easy to, you know, we had an amazing workshop here last night. People came down to design their own clutch bags, and it was really fun and engaging and lovely. And that's great and wonderful, but you know, you have to wash the dishes after that. And it's really important to see those as challenges and just continue to get through them, because you get there, that you have to take the ups with the downs, even though they're very, very monotonous. The second thing is that you will face huge crises that will, you know, potentially make you pivot, change your strategy, could shut you down. And how you deal with those, it has to come from some level of personal resilience, and also commitment to the impact that you're trying to have, and awareness of the problem you're trying to solve. Because if you face a crisis that's basically telling you yes, solving the problem is important, but you're doing it in the wrong way, you have to be ego free enough to realize that you might not have got it right the first time, and that you need to change, you need to adapt. And we've faced quite a few big crisis points like that, and have really changed how we've operated as a result of those. And that's, I think, what's kept us going till now. And then I suppose the third big challenge was that is again one that we faced in the beginning and that we'll continue to face, is that we are trying to change what the definition of luxury is. We are trying to change how people see redundant raw materials. We're trying to eliminate waste. We're trying to reinvent capitalism. You know, we've got all of these objectives, and just keeping those in mind and bearing those in mind in everything that we do is an incredible challenge. But that's also I suppose the reward, because if we weren't working on something that we felt was actually important, we wouldn't have a reason to stick around when things got tough, or when we had to wash the dishes or do VAT or deal with yet another bank that is driving us absolutely up the wall with some online automated service that's completely failing and letting us all down.
Okay, amazing. Is there anything else that you'd like to add in there?
I would just love to mention that in the next couple of months, we've got a few events down here at the mill, a couple of open days where people can come along and either design their own bag or personalize their own bag, or just come and hang out at a Christmas workshop event. So, have a look at our website, sign up to the newsletter, and we'd love to stay in touch.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And maybe we can do our own cups when we leave as well. So you get one job.
Indeed, indeed.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for your time. And it's been really, really fantastic and inspirational.
No, thank you a lot for the interview. It's always good, particularly on a Friday, to remind ourselves of how lucky we are to be doing this incredible.
That's right. That's right.